The Big Ten's won the last two national championships, and the SEC just took another loss off the field that isn't great for Missouri either.
You are Locked On Mizzou, your daily podcast on the Missouri Tigers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, all you true sons and daughters, I'm John Miller, your Mizzou mafioso and the central scrutinizer of Missouri Tigers football and basketball. You can, of course, talk about more on this huge Missouri and Alabama football game coming up here. And gosh, what is it now? 9 days? Can't wait. I know that. And I can't wait for a game that, frankly, is looking like a coin flip in my eyes, at least. And by the way, Missouri plays basketball this month, believe it or not, against a pretty interesting opponent, Kansas State. In fact, Missouri's, I believe, the team it's played the second most in its history in basketball. Plus, RIP to the sporting news, figuratively, if not literally, at this point. What a bizarre 24 hours that's been in a saga with PowerMizzou.com. But you know what? Before I get started in the show, this episode is brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. Mazda, move and be moved. And you know what? I'm going to move on and start with the topic, of course, that I teased at the top, and that is, according to Brett McMurphy here, in 2026, all Power 4 conferences will play 9 league games, by the way. This, of course, after the SEC decided, well, to cave in and say, fine, we'll play 9 games after all. As all of you know, we've broken down the schedules for the next 4 years at this point, from 26 to 29. A lot of this whining, by the way, came from Big Ten fans and Big Ten talking heads out there. And, well, notably, the Big Ten will be the only Power 4 conference not requiring one non-conference power opponent. So the SEC not only requiring 9 games, well, also you're going to have to play, if you're Missouri, a game against somebody like Kansas or Illinois or Colorado in the future who is on the schedule. The Big Ten, on the other hand, they're saying, we're good. We're actually not going to require our teams to do that. That 9th game against Rutgers and Purdue, that's certainly enough of a challenge for our mighty, mighty league. And I am being pretty sarcastic here because it is hilarious to me that the SEC made this change, and it's likely not going to change either, by the way. A Big Ten source told On3 that, that really hasn't been discussed. So to me, there's a little bit of egg on Greg Sankey's face here. And I really thought my colleague over at Locked On Gamecocks, of course, Chris Marler, was on the show here recently for a crossover. Here's what he said. He said, you can get mad at the Big Ten all you want. This is the SEC's fault for going to 9 SEC games and 10 Power 4 opponents. No one forced them to do that. They just gave in to the court of public negative opinion. And importantly here, greed. It's those two factors. Pretty simple. Well, this is me squinting here really, really hard, trying to find one single solitary lie in Chris Marler's statement there, because it is all about greed, of course. Hey, we'll take that extra money, but if insofar as the SEC gave in to the clucking hens out there of the Big Ten talking heads and whatever else it might be, the Danny Cannells of the world, whoever it was, I just think that's pretty stupid and also short-sighted, because ultimately, until the College Football Playoff Committee starts putting an emphasis on strength of schedule, on quality of wins, quality of losses for that matter, versus, Power 4 teams at this point, like Indiana proved last season, for example, you don't have to play all that great of a schedule, and in fact, you can get mostly dominated in the 1 challenging game you really did play against a top 25 type opponent in Ohio State. And really, this isn't to pick on Indiana. It looks like an even better team this season. Certainly a college football contender are the Hoosiers. The point here is that it really seems like the playoff committee is much more focused on that win-loss record. Hey, if you've got one loss, even if that, again, the quality, it doesn't really matter. It seems like your actual record is more important. So why not go the Gary Pinkel, Bill Snyder, speaking of Missouri and Kansas State, by the way, why not go the Pinkel-Snyder scheduling philosophy as much as possible if you can? Well, that's basically off the table now. If you're the SEC, and you've taken it off the table, you've made it as hard for your collective teams as you possibly can. And maybe in the long run, that'll pay off if indeed the College Football Playoff Committee changes its way of looking at things. But until I actually see that, I'm worried. I got to be honest, because if you're a 9-3 Missouri team, I'm not going to bother to pull up the 26, 27, 28, and 29 Missouri SEC schedule. But in particular, for example, the 27 schedule for Missouri, where the Tigers play 5 SEC road games against, I mean, just a gauntlet of teams, I believe, including Alabama and LSU on the road. I mean, if Missouri ends up 9-3, 8-4 with that schedule, I think you could easily make a case, especially if you expand it out to 16 in a few years here. If Missouri goes 8-4 against that schedule, they probably should be in the college football playoff, especially if you win a couple of those road games. And, you know, who knows how it plays out. The point is, I could easily see a scenario where a team like Missouri could be 8-4, 9-3, and have a much more impressive resume if we do it like basketball does it, quite honestly, with actually rewarding teams for playing difficult schedules for the most part. I could easily see a Big Ten team or an ACC team, a Big 12 team who is 10-2, of course, sneaking in ahead of them. And it's all, of course, it's all subjective, of course. So the thing is, my point is, to me, this is sort of an own goal by the SEC at this point. Unless you have some actual assurances, that's my thing. If I were Greg Sankey, I'd be going, you know what? I need some actual real assurances here. If we're going to make not only the commitment to go to 9, like obviously the Big Ten and all these people wanted, okay, we'll go to 9. Heck, we'll even include the Power 4 game in addition to that. But I need some assurances, some changes in the rules here that actually reward teams for playing really, really difficult schedules. And most importantly, having really, really high quality of wins. And yes, quality of losses matters too. I know a lot of people don't like that. Frankly, I'm kind of one of them. I get the point. But this is now, we don't just have 8 or 4 automatic qualifiers here. If we want to have 4 automatic qualifiers, the champions of each conference, well, that's going to be about as objective as we're going to get. Anything beyond that, well, we're kind of getting into the figure skating and gymnastics realm a little bit, where style points and, of course, subjectivity and, yes, degree of difficulty. Not everybody's floor routine is the same level of difficulty, just like not everybody's schedule is the same level of difficulty either. To me, at the end of the day, I think Chris Marlar is totally right. The SEC gave in to the court of public negative opinion and simply greed, and at the end of the day, I think it hurts Missouri. So that's all I really care about. And coming up, of course, it's obviously not too early to talk about the Missouri and Alabama game, so going to do more on that. And even though the line is holding steady, I should say, over at FanDuel, you know what? That 6.5, the money line, on the other hand, trending toward the Tigers, by the way. So, you know what? Let's talk about FanDuel, by the way, where not only college football, but of course the NFL is in full swing, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers, you can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right, you heard me. Pick a bet, pluck down $5, and if you win, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. And yes, by the way, the countdown is on. If you're a Missouri resident, December 1st. That's the day when FanDuel goes live in Missouri. Of course, you can download the app prior to that if you would like. I believe November 17th is the day where you can start buying in a couple weeks early. But yes, December 1st, FanDuel Sportsbook live in Missouri. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the app today and get started. And this episode is brought to you by Square. Your favorite neighborhood spots run on Square. There are certain businesses that make the neighborhood the neighborhood. These are places that become an extension of home. Whether it's the sports bar dedicated to our favorite teams, the spot with the best wings in town, or that beloved chain, or I don't know, just to take a random example, maybe a dance studio or something. Well, whatever it is, Square is going to help you be a part of the neighborhood, because when businesses thrive, the whole neighborhood thrives. And by the way, Square is a proud partner of more than 4 million neighborhood businesses around the world. You can go to square.com/go/LockedOnCollege to learn more. But before you do, go support your favorite neighborhood spot. You'll be happy you did. Square. See you in the neighborhood. And you know what? A quick correction here. In fact, the Missouri-Alabama line is down a point to a 5.5 are the Tigers, the amount of points they're getting. Now, the money line, which had creeped down last night, well, it looks pretty steady to my memory, about plus 168 or so. So what does that tell you? Well, it tells you we're creeping closer and closer to my opinions on the game. And of course, well, you know, you cut out clips for these podcasts and stuff, and you know, I was kind of trying to trigger Alabama fans a little bit, I'm not gonna lie. So let me clarify some of my statements. I guess it's not as though I'm going, well, Missouri's definitely gonna win the game. I'm just simply saying I think this is a real coin flip, in my opinion. That's the way I'm feeling about this game. Oh gosh, what are we, 9 days out here? I just think that, yeah, Alabama, with Ryan Williams, with Ty Simpson, with, you know, the plethora of talent that they have on that roster, can they throw on Missouri? Yeah, they probably can. But can the Tigers get them in obvious passing situations with their run defense and get home with that pass rush enough to win? I think they can too. So the question is going to be, can the Tigers continue to dominate the ground offensively and defensively? If they can, I think this may even be better than a coin flip for Missouri. The question is, we don't know how that's going to play out. Of course, Missouri has dominated against, well, some terrible opponents and some pretty good opponents in Kansas and South Carolina. We'll see just how good those teams are as we go along, but clearly Alabama is going to be a different challenge for Missouri. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out for certain. And yeah, there's no doubt that there's legitimate worries about this Missouri secondary right now. Listener Adam Owen, in fact, says, do you think the safeties take a step forward? I just find it hard to believe that we see the same secondary with how ticked Drink was after the South Carolina game. The extra week of preparation might help. Well, I would agree with that general sentiment for sure. I don't think Missouri is set in stone at just about any spot in the back end of the defense, really. And I do mean truly the back end. I don't really include Dalen Carnell in that necessarily. I include he's more of a strong safety, of course. But in terms of the cornerback position, in terms of the free safeties in particular, the guys who play the farthest back, Missouri plays a lot of single high. Marvin Burks is often in that spot. I've seen Santana Banner play more, so I just think you're going to see Missouri, yeah, they might shuffle some things around during this bye week for sure. I think anything is possible. Anything is on the table. Whatever makes Missouri even 5-10% better, you got to do it. You don't worry about anybody's feelings at this point. And as hard as it is to believe, Missouri plays basketball this month. And to be exact, well, Missouri plays 3 weeks from tomorrow. That's Friday, October 24th, against Kansas State, by the way. Not exactly a boring opponent, but the most boring way they could have possibly played the Wildcats, of course. An exhibition game. So what exactly the Missouri and Kansas State rotations are going to look like in that one, I have absolutely no idea. I'm not really sure what to expect here in an exhibition game against, well, a team that you've played in a rivalry that goes all the way back to 1907, by the way. That Missouri and Kansas State have played 237 times. That's the second most played opponent ever, according to MUTigers.com. I assume Kansas is number one. The former conference foes are meeting for the first time since 2018, and the first time on either campus since 2012, by the way, as Kansas State holds a slight edge in the all-time series, 121 to 116 wins for Missouri. So pretty close matchup there over the years, but this one isn't going to count to the all-time record, which, frankly, why not? I don't get it. Again, unlike college football, actually college basketball gives you credit for playing these types of games. Listen, I'm not saying it has to be a murderer's row in the non-con, but at least the season ticket holders are getting a free ticket to this game. That is the one plus. I'll give Missouri credit for that. Since this is a bonus addition to my season ticket and your season ticket for that matter, well, I'll give them that. That's added value, because I was thinking if I have to take money out of my pocket to go to this Kansas State exhibition game, I might be a conscientious objector. I got to be honest with you. I might watch it on TV. And by the way, it is going to be on TV somewhere. I'm not sure where exactly. Talking ESPNU. Is it going to be streamed on the SEC Unlimited thing? I don't know. Whenever I find out, I will certainly let you know. Now, the sporting news has been an institution in St. Louis, in Missouri, frankly, in the entire country. It started all the way back in 1886. So maybe it was time to put that vampire out to pasture anyway. But boy, I got to say, I think it committed suicide quite figuratively yesterday. So let's talk about the sporting news and how they quite literally ripped off and plagiarized an article by Gabe DeArmond over at Power Mizzou yesterday. A truly bizarre moment in media history, in my opinion. But you know what? First, I got to talk about Mazda, who crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. And from footwork to breathwork, athletes sweat all the details. Mazda brings this same intention to how we craft every model. You can feel Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to the available Nappa leather upholstery. You can make everyday drives feel like anything but, from smooth handling to intuitive controls. Because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. It is Mazda. Move and be moved. And if you're looking for a last-minute ticket to Mizzou in Alabama, well, good luck to you. It's not exactly going to be cheap. $183, the cheapest ticket over at Gametime. But you know what? I can at least get you $20 off. Does that do it for you? Well, maybe the St. Louis Blues, maybe St. Louis City SC, the MLS soccer team. Maybe that's more your speed and price range. Those are a lot more gettable at the moment. Regardless of what you're into or your price range, Gametime is the best place to get last-minute tickets. Download the Gametime app today and take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets. Create an account and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Gametime today. So on September 30th, what was that? Just 3 days ago, something like that. Let's see. Yes, Tuesday, in fact, just a couple days ago, Gabe DeArmond posted an article on Power Mizzou called Behind the Scenes, 8 Days in a Former Tiger that Led Eli Drinkwitz to Mizzou. Well, I definitely suggest checking it out. It was a well-done piece. So well done, in fact, that apparently the Sporting News and its AI formula could not resist. And I say AI formula quite specifically because the writer of said piece for the Sporting News, his name is Al Formicola. Yes, you cannot make this stuff up. Over at the Sporting News, his bio online here says, Al Formicola is a freelance writer with the Sporting News. He has over 20 years of television production experience as a writer and producer. He has previously written for Athlon Sports. Well, if this guy is indeed real, and I gotta say, I've got some real doubts here. Regardless, the Sporting News here has just completely and totally plagiarized Power Mizzou and Gabe's article here. By the way, this guy has posted 13 articles that same day, as Joe Waljasper, the former sports editor over at the Columbia Daily Tribune, pointed out. He chimed in here and said, wait, this guy posts 13 articles in one day? Again, the fact that Al Formicola seems suspiciously close to AI formula, I don't know. I've done a quick Google search, was trying to find any actual evidence of this guy existing in the television industry, or indeed, I looked Al Formicola, Athlon Sports. Let's see this previous written content that he's had for them, supposedly. I can't find any evidence of it. Maybe you detectives out there, maybe some of you have a raging clue and can figure out. Maybe you Hardly boys out there can get out your stethoscopes, not the stethoscopes, the magnifying glass and try to find me a raging clue on who exactly Al Formicola is. But it sure seems pretty obvious that the Sporting News is now just quite literally using AI to generate articles. And in this case, well, the AI maybe went a little bit rogue and just completely plagiarized Gabe's article, maybe changed a couple sentences or words or whatever here and there, but really a bizarre moment from a once proud institution that, if you're young enough, I mean, if you're a 20-year-old or something, the Sporting News, if you're a current Missouri student, for instance, the Sporting News probably means absolutely nothing to you because, well, they haven't done a print edition of anything since 2012. It's been sort of passed around between different entities since. It's just lost its luster, quite honestly, and now it's obviously circling the drain. But again, for those of you who don't remember, really, the Sporting News before the internet and all that stuff, when it was just print media dominated, when it came to national print sports publications, really, I would say Sports Illustrated, they were the clear number one. They were the Coke, but Sporting News, well, they were the Pepsi. I mean, obviously not as big as Coke, not as big as Sports Illustrated, but still an enormous deal. For instance, if Missouri or anyone else was ever on the cover of the Sporting News, I mean, that's something that is going to go on a frame on your wall for the rest of your life. I don't care who you are, especially as a young person. Listen, if you're Michael Jordan and you've been on 8 million covers over a year, that's one thing. I'm just saying anybody who's ever coming up and as an athlete and has that kind of moment, that was the type of publication that you would have so much pride in that you would literally take that, have it framed, and put it on your wall. Well, the Sporting News has taken whatever reputation it had left and just thrown it out the window for, I guess, a corporation that bought it and just thought, well, let's just try to squeeze whatever value is there out of this thing while it's circling the drain. But man, talk about just destroying whatever value it had left. You know, I've talked a lot about, this is obviously not there's no comparison between the Sporting News and college football in general, but just about college sports in general. I've talked about how it seems like there's nobody at the wheel here who's looking at the big picture. Well, obviously, there was nobody at the sporting news who was looking at the big picture, because even if the AI just kind of went off the rails a little bit and started maybe plagiarizing something that wasn't what you wanted the program to do, I'm trying to be very nice here, of course. But even then, if your plan was, let's just have AI voices and articles by Al Formicola, if that is your real name, what a bizarre business decision, one that I just do not see the upside to whatsoever. But the downside, well, we're seeing it quite obviously in this moment. But hey, thanks for listening to Locked On Mizzou. As per usual, sorry for a little bit later of a post today. The bye week, going to the wedding last week. I'll be honest, my schedule's all thrown off a little bit here. It'll probably be a little later of a post on Friday as well. But you know what? Next week we'll be back on schedule on Monday for sure. So thanks for your patience as always. And thanks for listening to Locked On Mizzou.